found this interesting. The Saturday paper about the I-75. I'll read just a couple of sentences here.
Car culture.
That said, there's a matter of energy consumption. Some metropolitan areas have sprawled so far as to make commutes hellish. As a result, people have become interested in living close to downtown or taking trains to work. So a lot of people are using less gasoline, but Dayton isn't that kind of metro area. Commutes aren't so bad and downtown struggles to be a draw. Well, that's not what this editorial board used to say when we begged and pleaded to have the Austin Road interchange. They were saying that traffic is going to grow, that we needed this because all the congestion around the consumer-based society.
No alternatives were discussed at all. And, you know, there are some simple alternatives to this, and it didn't involve a $77 million interchange.
Well, they followed Butler County, and Butler County had a transportation improvement district. And as soon as they built those 3 interchanges north of 275, Cincinnati declined. They started to have race riots. All these issues were pointed out by me and probably by you, even though in separate venues, to Mr. Parker. And I tried.
It's not about pointing fingers at the days of old. It's that they're starting to recognize now that
energy consumption and sprawling out costs money.
Costs a lot of money. The time you spend in your car is wasted. It's not productive. That's number one. The cost of the car is...
You also have the water pipes that you have to sprawl out because you're building. Gasoline pipes, the asphalt, the
electricity,
concrete,
the maintenance of the roads, the safety forces. It just keeps adding and adding and adding to the cost.
And maybe somebody in the Dayton Daily is finally getting it. 10 years a little late, but they're finally getting it.
You know, it's not just the interstate that we're talking about. It's the fact that, you know, Dayton Public Schools spends millions of dollars now shuttling kids around on big old buses. That's money that's not going to educating.
And that's money going to where? The Muslim countries that we don't like.
Right.
They have all the oil. It's a very interesting little thing. And, you know, in the last couple of weeks, oil is starting to become finally mainstream. The Department of Energy came out yesterday and said, we're going to have a problem with peak supplies. I know everybody hates this little word.
Don't use the words peak oil, Greg.
Well, it's coming. The mainstream's starting to use it, and Department of Energy said it.
The reality is, you know, we've sprawled and sprawled and sprawled to the detriment of us all. They're having problems packing kids into, you know, schools out in Beaver Creek and in Springboro and demanding more schools while we have buildings emptying out in the core city.
Yeah, you're wasting all that embedded energy.
And you're paying for it. This is why our cost of living keeps going up.
Well, and if you look at oil, you know, everybody said, oh, they can never see the housing crisis coming. Well, actually, you could see the housing crisis, and even more so, easier to see, is that oil is a finite resource, and the price points are giving you the keys. We need to really have done this 10 years ago, but finally, the Dayton Daily's getting on it. Finally, you might see some, you know... So,
you know, they say Dayton isn't that kind of metro area, and Dayton doesn't have these problems. Well, when gas gets up to $4 a gallon, things are going to change dramatically again, and we're not going to be any better prepared for it.
Well, they go for cars that are more energy efficient, and cars that run... I'm sorry, when Exxon is pushing algae as the source... We are in a seriously deep hole because there's no way that algae will supply enough fuel or any of these alternatives
even if it does,
for a growth-based society.
Even if it does.
It won't.
But even if it does, you're still putting one person in a car, taking up a huge amount of space wherever they go to park the car. It's not just your cubicle anymore, it's the car displacement factor.
Wow.
And you keep adding these things and it gets...
Well, the Dayton region, if it had maintained a smaller footprint and maintained its, you know, farming-based community.
As Oregon did with its nice drawn border in Portland, saying we're not expanding beyond this, and if we do, you're paying 100% of all the costs of it.
Yeah, we're going to really be in a rock. We already are kind of in a rock and a hard place. So my contention is continue to go to the farmers market, continue to support local agriculture, and if you're going to do resurfacing, make sure you resurface areas that bikes can ride on, and not necessarily always about cars.
No, but that's a good point. But let's also take a look. We're going to have to change behaviors somewhere along the line and start rewarding companies that locate close to where their people live. And I suggested this a long time ago, a walk-to-work tax credit, much more effective than giving tax credits for building new office buildings that we don't need.
Well, we also need a carbon tax.
Interchanges.
We need a carbon tax.
Carbon tax is easy enough to
and not necessarily, I don't like more taxes. I'm not, believe me, I hate taxes.
Yes.
Taxes are terrible. But to influence behavior that,
is counterproductive to our general wealth.
Yes. Why not invest in America? What's wrong with America?
Yeah.
That's not our oil underneath there.
No
matter how much you want to shoot them. Now, if that's what you want to do, fine, whatever. But
good job, Dayton Young News here.
Well,
finally catching on just a little bit.
Yes. 10 years too late, but what can we say?